people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
De la noche, Stephanie Piñeiro.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news. Ow!
Okay, we'll start with this per tweet from Michael Benson via Mike Kopinger. Errol Spence versus Terence Crawford talks are reportedly still ongoing in the background. At present, it's claimed there remains a remote possibility it could happen next, but Spence versus Keith Thurman remains far more likely as things stand. We're in February. I think the fight between Keith and Errol is supposed to go down sometime in May, towards the tail end of it, so there's still time to do Crawford versus Spence. Swap out Keith Thurman.
There is still time to do it.
Make the fight, promote the fight.
There is still time to do it.
Now that Crawford is in his mid-30s, if he is still negotiating with these people, and if there is still a ray of hope to do this fight, this long-anticipated, long-awaited, undisputed welterweight showdown.
Now that he's in his mid-30s, he needs to be a little bit more careful with his time, and moreover, keep his options open. You can have these dialogues with Al Heyman.
He could do that, but he needs to keep his options open and careful with his time, not put all his eggs in one basket. A little over a week ago, news broke that Terence Crawford was having conversations with Oscar De La Hoya, with Bernard Hopkins about potentially doing business with Golden Boy moving forward. Now, a fight with Spence certainly would take precedence over anything he's doing with them.
Anything he was about to do.
A fight with Spence would be the priority, but that depends.
If Spence is fighting Keith Thurman next,
and that's the likeliest fight that Spence is about to have, then it behooves Terence Crawford to keep busy with somebody as well. It behooves Terence Crawford to take care of what could be his mandatory challenger, Alexis Rocha. Terence Crawford is due a mandatory challenger this year. He's going to have to satisfy one. And based on who's in the ranks,
it looks like it's going to be Alexis.
If Spence versus Thurman happens, it behooves Terence to keep the way clear and take care of Alexis as to not impede the undisputed title fight with Errol Spence Jr., assuming it's for undisputed.
We don't know if it is.
We don't. The last we heard, Errol Spence Jr. was moving up from welterweight up to junior middleweight. The fight with Keith Thurman, that wasn't going to be for any of Errol's alphabet titles.
There's a lot about this entire situation that we don't know.
But let's just assume that the fight between Spence and Terence, the fight that they're planning, it's going to be for undisputed. Well, then it behooves Terence Crawford to hang on to the belt that he's got. Take care of his mandatory challenger. While Errol Spence Jr. is taking care of Keith Thurman in May, it behooves Terence to take care of Alexis Rocha in the summer months, in either June, July, August.
Get him out of the way and keep the way clear.
If that requires you to do a one-off situation, a one-and-done deal with Golden Boy for that fight on the DAZN platform, so be it, with the priority being the Spence fight
later on this year.
He's got to be careful with his time. He's got to be careful how he uses it. And he's got to be careful not to let Al Heyman waste it, because Al's looking out for his own fighter, for his own best interests. He may be trying to catch Terence with his pants down.
He might.
Are we supposed to trust? Is Terence supposed to trust that Al Heyman is trying to negotiate this fight on an even playing field for both fighters, the one he has under contract and the one that he doesn't?
Yeah, right.
The hell were you, born yesterday?
You stupid or something?
If Errol Spence Jr. is in fact facing Keith Thurman next, it behooves Terence to find someone to fight as well, someone to keep busy with. Who better than his mandatory challenger? What could be his mandatory challenger? when the time comes.
I would like to see Terence Crawford fight more than once this year. It's been a long time since Terence Crawford fought more than once in the same calendar year, and Errol, he's been even more inactive than Terence.
Less active. Errol only fought once in 2020, towards the tail end of the year. Didn't fight at all in 2021 and only fought once last year. Only fought once in 2022.
Terence has fought 3 times in the last 3 years, whereas Errol's only fought 2 times. Just 2 times in the last 3 years.
He's in possession of most of the alphabet titles in this division, and as you can imagine, that has an effect on how much attention the welterweight division gets when the guy with the most belts is the least active.
Among the least active fighters in the division. The only guy less active than Errol is Keith Thurman.
But Keith's not a champion, so who cares?
Not me.
The point is that Errol Spence Jr. is in possession of the most alphabet titles at that weight, and because of that, he's the one that has the most mandatories to satisfy.
That many more guys miss out on their opportunity. That many more guys miss out on their title shots while he's away, in his absence.
It's had an adverse effect on the welterweight division, what is otherwise known as one of the glamour weights, the more historically relevant weight classes. Not in this postmodern era of boxing. The welterweight division, at least to me, has been mostly a dud.
Mostly.
Should we be optimistic that talks for this fight are being revisited?
I'm not. I'm over it.
There are a lot of people, Errol Spence Jr. fans in particular, still interested in playing the blame game.
I'm not. I'm over it.
If they fight, great. If they don't fight, well, I didn't think they were going to fight anyway.
But should we be optimistic?
I'm indifferent. As far as I'm concerned, this is Errol Spence Jr.'s last chance. His last-ditch effort to make good on all the promises that he made. Make good on his undisputed claim, what's supposed to be his undisputed run. As far as I'm concerned, this is his last chance to make things right.
And if he doesn't, I'm not surprised.
I'm actually ready for the next cycle of welterweights. I'm ready for the next crop, the next generation that hopefully will give us a more eventful, more lively welterweight division than Errol Spence Jr.'s version of it.
I'm ready to move on.
I am. If they do the fight, great. But if they don't do the fight, I didn't think they were going to deliver anyway.
You know that I'm still not convinced they're going to deliver now.
I'm not, and I'm not going to apologize for that. In other news, yet another undisputed title fight that we've been waiting on for a long time, though not as long as Spence versus Crawford. Team Betterbiev says, our only interest is Bivol. 4th belt is all we're missing.
Then petition the WBC for an exemption. You've got time.
You still have time. Honestly, our only interest is Bivol, Ramsay told Le Journal de Montreal. Mark Ramsay, Artur Beterbiev's longtime trainer. We want the 4th belt. It's what we're missing. We're going to let Top Rank negotiate all that and see what happens. A Beterbiev versus Bivol matchup, however, is unlikely to materialize anytime soon because of considerable, perhaps even insurmountable, business obstacles at hand. As the two fighters do not share the same promoter, Bivol is promoted by Matchroom, which is obligated to showcase its fighters exclusively on DAZN, the sports streaming service. Top Rank has a similar deal to promote its fighters on ESPN. Aaron, the head of Top Rank, recently reiterated to BoxingScene.com.
Get moving then if that's your priority. If the 4th belt is what you want, you can't be a wallflower about this thing. You've got to get a move on.
Ahead of his fight with Anthony Yard 2 weeks ago, I remember reading Artur Beterbiev say that he's not going to cry if the Bivol fight doesn't happen.
He was addressing Dmitry Bivol's comments that he wants that fight with him, that he wants to shoot for undisputed.
Artur Beterbiev was. He was addressing Dmitry's comments, and he was questioning Dmitry's commitment to the fight when he's always saying that, but what's he actually doing about it?
Fair enough, but what are you actually doing about it?
What's Mark Ramsay doing about it? What's Top Rank doing about it? The people on your side of things, what are they doing to deliver that fight?
What are they doing about it?
You're the one with a mandatory challenger to satisfy by way of the WBC. Thus, you're the one that has to petition the WBC for an exemption to that mandatory. Dmitry ain't got no mandatories outstanding. He satisfied his less than 12 months ago. He's free.
The Zerto Ramirez fight late last year, that's what that was. That was his mandatory challenger, and he took care of that. He don't owe the WBA no mandatory mandatories right now.
There are preliminary talks of a potential Joshua Buatsi fight in Saudi, but that fight isn't made yet, and I'm sure that they'd put that fight on the back burner for the undisputed light heavyweight title fight. The question is, what is Artur? What is Mark Ramsay? What is Bob Arum? Top Rank? All of them. What are they doing to deliver that fight?
What are they doing about it? If that's what you want, what are you doing about it?
What are you doing? Aside from interviews. Artur's the one with a mandatory outstanding. Artur's the one that has to petition the WBC for an exemption to the mandatory so he can get the ball rolling with Dimitri.
Eddie and Dimitri can't do that for him.
Artur Beterbiev, a practicing Muslim, will be observing Ramadan. And, while he's doing that, what's stopping Top Rank from petitioning the WBC for an exemption to the mandatory so they can move straight into the Bivol fight? Because they need to. Artur's not getting any younger.
The Smith fight ain't bigger than the Bivol fight.
But if they don't petition for that exemption, Artur may be obligated to fight yet another mandatory challenger in Callum Smith in the spring. A recent representative of Top Rank suggested that a Beterbiev versus Smith fight could take place in either England or in Beterbiev's adopted hometown of Montreal at the end of the summer. Beterbiev, a devout Muslim, would be unavailable to fight in the spring due to the Ramadan holiday. Bivol is expected to return in the spring, possibly against Joshua Buatsi. Should he be victorious, he will likely enter into a rematch with undisputed super middleweight champion Canelo Alvarez in the fall at a weight class to be determined.
I don't care what anybody says. I've heard nothing in terms of actual movement from the Top Rank side of things to get Callum out of the way.
And if they really wanted the Dimitri Bivol fight to be Artur's next fight, that's what we'd be hearing. Looks like
Callum Smith is supposed to be in action early next month opposite the ring. Powell Tapian.
Top Rank don't get that exemption. Artur's going to have to satisfy that guy. And they're talking about maybe doing it in England. They're talking about doing it maybe in Montreal. If they do it in Montreal, Yvonne Michel of Jim,
He'll promote the show in Canada.
if the show lands in Montreal. If the show lands in England, Frank Warren will helm the promotion for the show.
That is, Bob Arum would like him to.
The thing is, they've got to make Callum an offer he's willing to accept. Because if he doesn't accept it, by the time the grace period is over, a purse bid will be called. Then the rights to the fight, they're up for grabs.
If a purse bid is called, Matchroom can put a bid in for the rights to the fight.
It can be a long, drug-out process. Longer than it needs to be for an aging fighter, an aging champion like Artur Beterbiev, who's pushing 40. For going through all the trouble to do that fight, why not just spend that time trying to do the Bivol fight?
It's the only Matchroom fighter you need to be negotiating with. If you have to work with the rival promoter and the rival platform, shouldn't it be for that fight?
I get the sense that they're banking on landing the rights to the Smith fight. They actually want it to be Callum Smith because they know they can sell that in the United Kingdom.
But where can they sell two Russian nationals, two Russian fighters, and turn over a profit? Not in America, not in the UK, not in any of the major boxing markets.
It's a great fight, don't misunderstand me, and I actually like this fight more than I like the Spence versus Crawford fight. I think that fight is overcooked.
The problem is these are two Russian nationals. Neither guy has all that many fans in America, all that many fans in Canada, or all that many fans in the United Kingdom.
All that many that Top Rank is actually interested in making it. My honest opinion is Top Rank isn't interested, not really interested, in making the Beterbiev versus Bivol fight.
Because they don't think they can sell it.
Whereas Eddie Hearn and Matchroom, they can have those two boys fight over there in Saudi Arabia. The Saudis will put up the money they want for the fight.
That's where they did Bivol versus Ramirez. That's where they're rumored to be doing Bivol versus Buatsi. Why not do Bivol versus Betterbiev there?
Do that instead.
It's because Bob doesn't want to send Artur to DAZN.
That's the problem. That's the real problem. That's what I think the real problem is. He won't just send the guy over, even though he should.
He'd rather that Artur just keep on facing mandatory challengers well into his 40s.
They're talking about a Smith fight, and after a Smith fight, there's going to be another mandatory challenger in the queue. The winner of Pascal versus Eifert by way of the IBF.
Another one.
They're handling this thing like Artur Beterbiev ain't close to 40 years old, like he's got all the time in the world, and he doesn't. Finally, in men's heavyweight news, 2-3 days ago it was announced that Martin Bakole, the next king of Scotland, has set his sights on becoming heavyweight king.
By signing to BOXXER. He's going to be boxing on Sky Sports now.
He's a good enough fighter, a solid enough fighter, an entertaining enough fighter that he really should be boxing on a major platform, though you have to really question what Sky can do for him. Not that long ago, news broke that they signed American up-and-comer Michael Hunter, and nothing came into fruition as a result of that signing. Nothing materialized for that fighter, and eventually, they cut him loose. They let him go.
Seems like that relationship ended before it started.
Are we about to see the same thing with this? For Martin Bakole, this signing is beneficial. It's good for Martin because he gets to box on a major platform and they can put some money in his pocket. But overall, Ben Shalom and BOXXER's ability to promote this fighter and put him in big fights.
I mean, it's good for Martin because they can keep him on a regular schedule.
It's good for Martin. It is. But is it good for them? Is it good for BOXXER? Is it good for Ben Shalom? Because the onus to keep this guy busy, not just keep him busy, but put him in big fights, the onus to do that is on them.
There ain't no big names at BOXXER.
No Dillian Whites, no Anthony Joshuas, no Tyson Furies, no Joe Joyces, no Daniel Dubois.
100%. I'll fight anyone. Just pay me enough. And then that terms and the contracts are signed, I'm ready to fight. I'll fight anyone, man.
Was Daniel Dubois responding to a call-out from Martin Bakole, and that would be a nice little fight to put together over there in the United Kingdom, but we all know what separates them, the political boundary lines that determine what fights happen and what fights don't. Where Martin Bakole is now with Sky Sports and BOXXER, Daniel's still with Frank Warren and BT.
You often hear it said that Sky is a powerhouse, that promotional engine, but doesn't really seem that way these days.
It is true that Sky in the United Kingdom is a bigger, more established platform than, say, DAZN. But when it comes to familiar names, familiar faces, and familiar fighters, they're actually over there at DAZN. They're not at Sky. You tell me who at Sky is a bigger draw than Dillian White. You tell me who at Sky is a bigger draw than Anthony Joshua.
What Sky seems to have are young fighters that they're grooming, young fighters that they are still building, but here today, they don't have anybody that draws better than those guys.
They don't. Who are we talking about? Adam Azim? Fraser Clark? What, because they got Lawrence Okoli to cross over? Hey, listen, Lawrence Okoli was never that big a draw to begin with.
So tell me, what fighters that are fighting on Sky sell more tickets than Dillian, sell more tickets than Anthony, sell more pay-per-views? What fighters?
Which ones? Because while Sky Sports may be a bigger, more established platform in the UK than DAZN, DAZN's got the fighters. DAZN's got the names. Hell, even Frank has more familiar faces and fighters than Sky does right now.
That's where Martin Bakole is going to be fighting moving forward. What heavyweights are they going to match him against?
Yeah, Joseph Parker. They've got Joseph Parker over there. I suppose they could make a fight between Martin Bakole and Joseph Parker, and that is a good little fight to put together. It's a good little fight, but don't forget that Joseph got knocked out by Joe Joyce not that long ago.
So it's not like we haven't seen him stop before. We have.
I think that Huey Fury is still over there. He's still boxing under the BOXXER banner. He was supposed to fight Michael Hunter, but he fell ill once again, and the fight got scrapped.
Huey Fury is a chronically ill fighter.
He's got some medical issues, he does, and, sometimes they flare up, but what's the best fight that Sky can make for Martin Bakole?
A Huey Fury fight.
Is that the best they have to offer him? While it is good for Martin Bakole that he's going to be boxing on a major platform, are you starting to see what I mean? That even though he's on Sky, and even though Sky is an established platform, they don't have the names for Martin.
They ain't got the Whites, the Joshuas, the Joyces, the Dubois,
The Furies, the Usyks, they ain't got the names.
How are they going to match him?